If a criminal group can kill 3,000 of us in broad daylight and suspend the laws of physics and sell this to the people and launch illegal wars and kill over 1 million Iraqis and lie about WMDs in a premeditated fashion, none of us are safe, because this same system is still in control, whether we have George Bush, Barack Obama, or somebody like Rick Perry in 3 years in the White House. Sarah Palin isn't going to save you. Joe Biden isn't going to save you. You are going to save this country and this planet. The United States, once the true beacon of liberty and freedom worldwide, the example to other nations, has now become an example of corruption and oppression and tyranny. The communist Soviets, 60, 70 years ago, would torture people. They would torture people's children. They would force confessions. But they never publicly admitted it and tried to sell it to their population as a good thing. The Nazis tortured and murdered people en masse. They tortured people's wives and children in front of them to get false confessions. But they never publicly admitted it, even in their kangaroo courts. Only the arrogant social engineers that run this nation, people like John Yoo, people like Alberto Gonzales, people like Barack Obama, who is continuing and expanding rendition and secret arrest and secret black sites all over the world. They are the only ones who in history have said that torturing children is a good thing. They are attempting to literally twist the minds of the people, to baptize us in pure black-hearted murder and corruption, so that this entire system of Northcom, Homeland Security oppression, that we were sold as a bill of goods, just like Hitler. Oh, it's for a minority. It's for people that wear turbans. It's for people thousands of miles away in a cave. But when we got the Homeland Security and PNAC documents last year from law enforcement, it showed us what we already knew, but proved it. The entire system is focused on activists, anti-war activists, anti-GMO food activists, Second Amendment activists, libertarians, anti-war activists, returning veterans, former police, anyone that has any skills is targeted by this secret police network that the system is attempting to roll out against us. But the good news is, in every poll, in every focus group, and by every indicator we've got, this has only caused the people who were on the fence and who were in denial to finally wake up and realize just how dire our straits are. Because yes, the people are beginning to wake up, but the system is coming in like a flood against us and attempting to fully break our will and to capture the United States as an engine of global domination. And for anyone who studied history, when you have an empire, a regional empire or a global empire, take Rome 2,000 years ago, the most oppressed people in that system are those living in the heart of the empire. And they use our primitive instincts to be threatened by outsiders, to sell us on primitively turning off our thinking process and going along with this evil. But in the final equation, it is a life and death situation. And there couldn't be a more serious issue to face than an empire who writes policy reports for PNAC, Dick Cheney and others, September 2000, amongst others. You have Zbigniew Brzezinski running much of the policies for Obama, writing 2 books, one of them The Grand Chessboard, saying if we don't have a large Pearl Harbor event, we're not going to be able to mobilize our people to launch all of these new wars for this Pax Americana. But even if you were an evil servant of the empire, you need to understand that in this empire, you will be targeted just as much or more than outsiders. So when we hear about a Pax Americana, it's not even a Pax Americana. This is not being done for our nation. This is being done for offshore private banks that control the United Nations, that control our Pentagon, that control our Congress, and who are seeking to solidify their hold on the planet so they can go ahead with the next phase in their operation. And if you think the tyranny you've seen so far has been bad, the next phase will make this pale in significance. Some of the points I wanted to go over here are basically the history of government-sponsored terror. And I know that most of you are fully aware of this, but for people watching this later on hundreds of different video channels, on the web, on YouTube, and on other channels, you're going to hear some architects, some engineers get into the Twin Towers, and the clear evidence that there was a top-down controlled demolition, that Building 7 was blown up with a classical controlled demolition, and that the federal government and NIST have been forced to change their story 5 and now a 6th time, and that they can't even explain why these towers fell. And that's very important from a scientific perspective, because that's something that professionals, physicists, architects, engineers can really sink their teeth into. But there's other areas of evidence that I wanted to speak about today, and that is the absolute 100% fact that throughout history, governments have staged terror time and time again. And for viewers watching out there on the internet later, I want to challenge you to go read mainline history books on Rome, which was the model of imperial control when Rome collapsed in 410, throughout the Dark Ages, and then even into the modern Enlightenment and where we are today. The Romans would routinely, and then many years later they would write about it, they would brag about it, they would write manuals on how they had done it. They would routinely stage massacres and kill everyone on an outlying village on the edge of the empire as a pretext to then propagandize local tribes to fall in behind their legions and support them. But there were even more classical cases of false flag staged events by the Romans. If you go to the history books and read about some of the most powerful families in Rome, in fact Julius Caesar's family, they were involved in the city of Rome and surrounding areas in fire insurance. And they would come to the local patrons at businesses, to the different neighborhoods, to the Jewish neighborhoods, to the Greek neighborhoods, to the Roman neighborhoods, and they would say, you need to support our fire department, and if you don't support our fire department, we are going to burn down your neighborhood. You may have heard of this a couple thousand years later with the Italian mafia. Well documented, comes to your grocery store, your cleaners, or your business and says, if you don't pay us protection money and hire some of my boys to work here, then somebody's going to burn your business down. And so this is a repeat. This is what false flag terror is. This is a mafia system of control. And I used, of course, the example of the Roman Empire and the Italian mafia, but every mafia operates through these same extortion rules. And that's exactly what's happening today. Of course, there are well-documented cases of the Nazis using false flag terror. In 1939, on the eve of the attack on Poland, it had already been predetermined with Stalin that they would divide the country. How was Hitler going to get the German people, who had been told that they were just building up this big military to defend Germany? How were the Germans, who didn't like war after World War I, how were they going to be seduced into attacking Poland and then launching World War II? Well, this was done by the German military taking some people from a local camp, dressing them up in Polish uniforms, shooting them, killing them, shooting newsreel footage of it, and putting it in the movie theaters and on the radio that Poland, who had an antiquated, really pre-World War I army on horseback, had supposedly just attacked, at the time, the most powerful military in the world. That was libelous. Then, of course, you know about Hitler and the Reichstag and grabbing the mentally ill Marinus van der Lubbe off the street and blaming it on him. And now European courts have gone into the annals last year and officially said, yes, the conspiracy theorists were right. Hermann Goering firebombed the German Capitol building. And again, here's the problem. There are over 200 that I've identified that are declassified examples in the last 60 years that our government has staged. There's the 1980 Bologna bombing. That's been all over the Italian newspapers. Their former presidents have come out. Their former head of intelligence has come out. Every time a political party that wasn't inside the power structure, whether it be a right-wing party or a communist party, they targeted both, but mainly the communists in Italy. Every time that they were really starting to get some headway with the public, the establishment would stage terror attacks. Their favorite was train stations, school buses, police stations, military bases, so that they could then demonize that group. And of course, we've seen countless examples of this. You look at Operation Ajax, Mohammad Mossadegh, 1953, Iran. Mohammad Mossadegh was pro-Western, Time Magazine Man of the Year. He just wanted to build up and industrialize Iran. He was much more secular than any other leader they'd ever had. He wanted to be friends with everybody. And so we see the birth of the modern Al-Qaeda.